Hi, this is Tim Francis, founder of Profit Factory and Forbes contributor. Today I'm very lucky to be interviewing the one and only Todd Herman, who is the founder of the Peak Athlete High Performance and Coaching Program. Todd is also the founder of the 90-Day Year. Today Todd's here and is going to tell us a little bit about the importance of avoiding too much context switching to help us perform at the highest possible level as entrepreneurs. So Todd, maybe you can start by telling us what is context switching.
So context switching is this great concept that a gentleman by the name of Gerald Weinberg developed back in the early 1990s. And why it's important for everybody that's watching this is because what he found was, or a lot of people love to kind of say that they're fantastic at multitasking. Well, it's a myth. Our brains can't, humans aren't built to multitask. And he found that there is actually a hard cost to our day, our time, that we lose when we context switch back and forth. When we move from this project to that one, it could be like having a tab open on your computer screen while you're also working on something over here and you're checking your email, and that switching of context costs us. So if you think of it this way, we all have a ton of things we're trying to achieve and accomplish. And especially for the people who are watching who are ambitious individuals, our ambition can sometimes get in the way of performance. And me being a high performance guy, I'm trying to find and give people tools to not only just execute better in their day, but also change some paradigms for how they're working. So what Gerald Weinberg did at the University of California, San Diego, was create a fantastic grid to show people what the cost is on your day if you context switch. So if you think of it this way, if you've got one project and you have 8 hours in your day to work on that project, you're not going to have any loss to context switching because you're working on one thing for 8 hours. All right, so there's 0% loss to this idea of context switching. But if you have two projects and you're working on both at the same time, your available time that you have for those projects, if you divide them up, people would think as well, I got 50% of my time. So 4 hours for this thing and 4 hours for the other project. But that's not what happens, because context switching grabs 20% of that time and shoves it into the ether of the world or the universe, and you don't get it back. And that's because the time it takes to go from looking at this project and looking at this project, there's a recalibration that happens. I'm like, okay, where was I on this? What was I saying? So you reread some of the paragraph that you're writing, if it was like an article or any sort of like, business correspondence, and you have to recalibrate where you are. So you lose time there. The other part of it too is when you're working on something for a length of time, you get into a bit of a zone and a flow state with it, right? And when you stop yourself from that zone and flow state, it takes roughly 12 minutes of concentrated work on one thing to get yourself back into a zone and flow state. And that zone and flow state allows you to really get all of your capabilities pouring out at you at the same time without a bunch of judgment and criticism that's happening in your head. So if you kind of continue to work this through, if you have 3 projects that you're working on at the same time, so 3 ideas, your available time through context switching is you actually lose 40% of it. So now you only have 60% of your time. So if you have a 10-hour day, you've lost 4 hours to context switching. And you can work through this grid, and we can put up an image on the screen to kind of really show people what the cost is if you have 5 projects. Now, the reality is most entrepreneurs are working on way more than 5 things. Not even entrepreneurs, executives, could be, CMOs, anybody. Working on too many things at once costs you a ton of time. So if you're the type of person that when you get to the end of your month, you're like, man, I know I put in a ton of effort, but I don't feel like I've earned anything back from this effort. There is no ROE, return on efforts, what I call it with my athletes or my entrepreneurial clients. Well, that's because you've lost most of your month, not to not working hard, but to just the way that you're working. Change the way that you're working, and you're gonna get a different result. Not by working any harder, just by changing the way that you work.
It's a real cost, a real diminishing returns.
Absolutely, big time. Yeah, big time.
So if entrepreneurs are wanting to avoid too much context switching, avoid that cost of changeover, which we talk about in project management all the time, what are some strategies that we can take home to get as productive as possible?
I mean, there's 1,000 techniques that we could talk about, but at the end of the day, the question I'll ask people all the time is, who owns your day? Do you own your day? Are you the one who's setting up your field of play? Or are you allowing other people's interests, other people's demands to kind of creep in? That could be phone calls, text messages, emails, scheduling things out in your day. No one, when they created email, said that you had to be 100% available at all times, checking it throughout the day. It's habit. And it's actually ingrained in, there's gamification, did something new come in? Have I missed anything? FOMO, I mean, it's a big part of how most apps are built. Schedule it. I only need to check my email twice a day, or the other communication tools that I use inside of my companies. So even scheduling in those things that you find pull you away, that cause you to context switch. Could be Facebook notifications. It could be, whatever it is for someone that they use in their daily life that they're constantly finding is a distraction for them. The other thing is planning your tomorrow today. So, the mistake is to wake up in the morning and look at your schedule and see what it looks like. No. The smartest people will sit down and think through what their tomorrow is going to be like the day before and map that out. Because when you map that out the day before, you're typically going to put in the highest, most important items in your day so that you make sure that they show up in your day, as opposed to the things that other people want you to do, which are typically not highly important to what your goals are, and they're not highly leveraged to move you forward. So those are just a couple of them that people can start to do.
You and I have talked before about the idea of theming our days. Last year I was a participant in Strategic Coach, which a lot of you and I's peers have participated in. Yeah. In Strategic Coach, they talk a lot about free, focus, and buffer days, and literally designating 24-hour periods, midnight to midnight or 2 a.m. to 2 a.m. for the night owls out there, on either our highest leverage, greatest talent, they call it unique ability type skill and activities on a focus day. Yeah. Buffer days is all of the running around, doing errands, crossing T's, dotting I's that we inevitably must do. Yeah. And then a free day is like no cell phone, no email, no anything whatsoever. Literally like I always would joke with my assistant that it's my airplane mode days. The phone's actually on airplane mode. Yeah. So that's one way I've heard to theme days before. Google's also got the maker days and the manager days. Yeah. What are some other ways to theme days that you've heard of?
There's a lot of hats that we need to wear, especially when you're starting out, because you don't have enough team, you don't have enough resources around you. So you're typically wearing hats that you're typically not even very good at wearing, right? Finance is typically a hat that most entrepreneurs are terrible at wearing, and that can be like, the accounting, the bookkeeping, and things like that. So theming out a day helps you make decisions more quickly. So for me, it's always Financial Fridays. Has been for almost 20 years in me being in business.
Financial Fridays.
Financial Fridays.
Okay.
So if my accountant reached out to me on a Tuesday and he's like, "Hey Todd, we need to talk this week," I automatically know I can make quick decisions. Boom, let's go. It's going to be on a Friday. That's that bucket. That's where it's there to catch things. That's what theming is all about. It's there to catch the topic categories that I have. Or the other way to think of it is when you're starting out in business, marketing, sales, and product pillar of the business is the most important pillar to be focusing on. You got to get your name out there. You got to get sales coming in and converting people, and you got to really fine tune that product. Well, putting that at the beginning of your week, so that possibly whatever marketing activity you're doing, it's catching momentum, and maybe you're catching some of that. If you put out some marketing document or marketing communication on a Monday, maybe it spills in over the week all the way up to a Thursday. Well, I don't want to do it on a Thursday and have communications coming into me on Saturdays and Sundays where I'm not around looking at it. I want to respond to people as quickly as possible. So it's marketing Mondays. And it could be client delivery Tuesdays. Or it could be client deliveries Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Maybe it's 2 days. It's the same thing. But I know that I will only ever take a meeting with a client on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. That's it. So if I have an online calendar scheduling system, the only days that it's available are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So that's another way to be thinking about the most important activities that are in your business, or the meta themes of your business, or whatever it is that you do if you're not even a business owner, if you're an executive. What are the most important parts? You're offloading decision making. That's key. Other people can help make decisions for you so that your brain space can be free to think of strategy, the most important things that are going to really move you forward, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Todd, for helping us understand how to avoid context switching and to help us with a few super easy tools. I would say simple, but maybe not easy to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.